Now, guys, I know you're looking at me and you're thinking, Kit, oh my gosh, you have such a glow about you today. Like, what's happened? And there are just so many things going on in my life right now that warrant a glow on one's skin. Main one being, I've reached a new high of girl next doorness. And I know you're thinking, Kit, what is girl next doorness? So that's just like being a girl next door. It's being very relatable. It's being very, oh my God, I'm wearing a baggy jumper. I'm wearing some jeans. I have a hairband on my wrist. I'm just prepared like that, you know, very girl next door. Hair blowing in the wind, walking down the street, etc. Girl next doorness has reached a whole new level when you walk into a coffee shop and they say the regular order. Right. See, now I've become, guys, I'm such a local. I'm just such a local. Like, sometimes you just can't help being so how you say locola. That's local in KCCU tongue. Locola. Right. Are you guys not sick of me yet? Like, do you click onto this podcast and just think, finally, this is my time of the week where I can make fun out of a bitch called Kit Costello? Do you know what I mean? Like, some people laugh with me. I think a lot of you laugh at me, you know? A lot of people listen to this podcast and they're like, oh, at least my life isn't that bad. Where I literally look forward to being called a local at my local cafe. And it's not even my local, bitch. It's Emma's local. Wait a minute. Me being called a local, they are going to be so gagged when I never see them again. Because if you don't know, I'm currently staying at my friend Emma's flat for like a week and a half. I've been going to that cafe every other day. I walked in there the other day with Hanifa, that queen. And Hanifa, before going in, we were like, it would just be so cool if I was like a local. I would just love to be a local at this cafe. And Hanifa was like, you know, they might remember your order. I walked in, they said, do you want your Americano? And I said, oh my God. And you know, you've got to kind of keep it chill. You got to keep it cool. You got to keep it different. You got to be normal about it, you know? And that's what a girl next door is. You know, a girl next door knows that she's going to be the regular at the cafe shop. So it's not a gag, you know? There are plenty of cafe shops that I'm a regular at. So they said, do you want your Americano? And I said, oh, sorry, who are you again? Where are we? And they said, oh, you're at the cafe. And I said, oh, right. Yeah, no, Americano would be perfect. Guys, welcome back to Self-Interrupted with Kit Costello. Now listen, I am Kit Costello. I'm the host of this podcast. And if you're looking at me and you're thinking, Kit, you look a bit different, why would you bring that up? Why would you bring up that I haven't been straightening my hair? Why would you bring up that I haven't been using heat on my hair because it's breaking off due to damage? Why would you say that? I think it's really, no, I think it says so much about you as a person. It really does. Don't you just love when I like put words into your mouth? That's my favorite thing about this podcast. I love putting words into your mouth and being like, why would you say that? When like, so many of you just listen to the episode, you don't even know what I look like. And honestly, thank God, because I'm feeling a little bit fierce, but yeah, the truth is I haven't been putting heat on my hair at the moment because how you say it's breaking off. But we'll talk about that more in the catch up of the week. This episode, we are talking about being lonely and honestly the beauty of being lonely and how to immerse yourself in loneliness without spiraling into depression. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely, and today we're going to dissect that. But first, let's get into the catch up of the week. So yes, Kittinators, I haven't been using heat on my hair, and for a plethora of reasons. Now, if you don't know the law, this time last year, guys, I was in the damn trenches. How you say Trenc. I forgot I had dyslexia. Wait. Trenches? Right. Sure. You know what? I was in the trenches. I basically was a hair model for my hairdresser, and I was entered into a hair color competition, and my hair was dyed a bright orange/ginger. Right. Now, to get to that color, I had to go platinum blonde. And right, the original plan, this is a bit of a tea that maybe not everyone knows. The original plan was I was going to go orange, like the orange for the show. Then I was going to go back to platinum blonde. And it got to a point where I had been ginger for a second. Then I went to more of a natural ginger. And then I said to my hairdresser, like, can we go blonde? And she said, I don't think it's feasible, babe. Lightening your hair again, it's all going to break off. And I said, oh, okay, great. That's perfect. So then I was like, I'm actually kind of sick of the color and I want to go back to my natural color, which I think it's a pattern. Sorry, I've got to take this hairband off my wrist. I don't think it's very high fashion. Speaking of high fashion, girl, I was meant to meet Addison Rae today. I say meant to meet Addison Rae. I just didn't get tickets to her signing. I was meant to meet Addison Rae today. And it pisses me off actually because no one said that there were tickets and they were all sold out. And then this morning I was in bed at literally like 6:30 looking on Twitter. I was like, Addison Rae tickets for Rough Trade East. And then I was having very sketchy conversations on iMessage with a couple of people that were trying to sell me tickets. And I was like, oh, this is giving scam, babe. Like, let's stop. I'd given them my name and my number. And I was like, oh my God, wait, can they take all the money out of my account. I don't know. The money's still there, so the fingers are crossed. Anyway, basically was gonna go to like a blonde, ended up, didn't do that, went back to a brown because I think it's like a natural cycle that people that color their hair quite intensely go back to just wanting their natural color and having it like completely grown out to like the longest length that they can possibly have it. So it's like healthy, right. And that's the current stage that I'm in. But to continue that stage, I have to take the heat off. Babe, I've been straightening my hair at least twice a week. I know you're thinking, "Okay, that's not too crazy if you're wearing heat protectant spray," which I always do. But there was just something about it where I was like, "Oh, my hair's breaking off a little more than it usually does." And if we're going to put two and two together, it only started doing this once I started learning how to blow dry and straighten my hair, which was a godsend. Guys, learning how to blow dry your own hair is a bit sexy. It's a little bit, how do you say sexy in French? Voulez-vous coucher avec toi et toi? That was the worst French I think has. That was awful. I'm actually pretty embarrassed. Hey Siri, how do you say sexy in French?
In French, sexy is sexy.
Oh, sexy. Right. Sexy. So I wanted to feel very sexy. So right. So I just blew dry my hair. And honestly, I got into such a routine of doing it that I had to stop because it was damaging the hair. Anyway, you guys literally don't care. All of that to say, if you think my hair looks a bit tough, let's keep it on the down low, okay? Because I've been getting like transphobic comments on my spam account on TikTok. Classic movements from them. And they've gone from like calling me a man to calling me busted. And that one hit home. I was like, I'd rather you call me a man than call me busted because I haven't straightened my hair. Let's stop that. Anyway, like I said, I'm now a regular at the cafe that is local to Emma, and I love them. They love me. It's like a cute little thing we have going on. I walk in, their faces light up, my face lights up. It's a bit special. And also, they have this like electronic membership card that if you buy 7 coffees, you get one for free. And today, I went to get my stamp, and the guy behind the bar put extra stamps on my card because he was like, "You deserve them," and I was like, "Oh my god." Okay, so went to the coffee shop this morning and I actually wrote in my journal what I was going to talk about today. And I think that was very like, again, like very girl next door, more points to me for being such a GND girl next door. And also just like very mysterious, like, ooh, what is she writing in that notebook? You know, like that was what I was giving. Love that cafe. I love an Americano, famously, no sugar, no milk, just an Americano. I have started getting because I have a selection of gluten-free goodies. So I have started getting a little gluten-free goodie and they do a big fat chocolate chip cookie. Now, I'm almost certain that that cookie has been sitting there for maybe a week and a half and it's gone stale. Like it's hard as a brick, but there was something kind of Italian about it. There was something kind of Italian about me like getting that chocolate chip cookie and dipping it into my Americano to kind of soften it up a bit. There was something like, ooh, did I pay £5 for this? Sure. Am I now softening it by putting it in my Americano? Yeah. Is it kind of camp? Yeah, right. It's kind of fashion. This week I also went to a Japanese cafe / restaurant with Emma. I forget what it's called, but it's on the canal in London. And it was well, okay. It was nice. I liked the decor. You know, I liked the beat. I just didn't really care for what I had ordered. I thought it was very plain. And then by the end of after I'd finished, but I basically got like rice balls with certain like I guess Japanese vegetables put in the middle of them and then nori wrapped around them. And I don't like nori at the best of times. I really struggle eating nori. Nori kind of gives matcha coated in the sense that it's like a very earthy, kind of like almost seaweedy taste to me, like grassy. I can't really deal with that. Also, it reminds you of fish. So when I eat nori, I kind of am like, oh, I'm eating fish, but I'm not. But it just is like, ugh, not my give. I love rice though, so I had to hack it for the rice. Anyway, I finished them and I was like, that was not giving because there just wasn't much flavor. And then the woman behind the counter was like, oh, you should have added spices to it. And then I looked behind me and there was like a rack of spices that I was meant to add to my rice balls, which wasn't, okay, it wasn't said. I wasn't told that there were spices that I should be adding. Anyway, it was only £3 for each rice ball, which I thought was really good because they were handmade with love, authentically Japanese, and I really appreciated it. So shout out to that restaurant, even though I don't remember your name. Good for you. I then walked from, what did I do after that? I went for a walk. I think that was one of the first days I was here, staying at Emma's. We went to that cafe. And then afterwards, I went for a walk because I love just a walk. I do. I love a walk with my headphones and music and just I went to the cafe that I've been talking about. Girl, I walked all the way to that cafe. I've been walking so much recently, and I do want to emphasize this because when I'm on the farm, ironically, I don't walk a lot. And I say ironically because I think a lot of you would really think that I'd be walking a lot on the farm. And I do. Famously, I do my walks to the village. But that's only like 5,000 steps there and back. It's not a crazy amount. Maybe even 4,000. We're walking around London. I am out here on a pilgrimage. Like, I'm not joking. I've hit like 15,000 steps a day. Guys, stop. I'm just a normal person. That isn't very girl next door of me. Girl next door would only do like maybe 6,000 because she's going to work. She's coming back. She doesn't have time. She has to put something in the oven. She has to eat it, read a book, watch something on the telly, and then go to bed. Like, she's not worrying about her steps. But me, sometimes I'm not girl next door and I have to worry about those steps because someone recently called me out. I showed them my step count and they were like, this is actually really embarrassing and you should. It went from, they were joking. They were like, ha ha ha. And then it went like straight face deadpan. No, I'm not even joking. You need to fix that. Because every day my average was like 1,000 steps a day. And apparently that's really bad. So they were like, you actually really need to get help. So I've been walking, and if you're listening, I hope you're happy now because I'm actually out walking you. So yeah, right. Up next, hashtag I need to move to London core. And I do. I need to get, guys, we need to get Kit off the farm. We need to get Kit off of the farm. The farm, I think I outgrew the farm when I was around 6 years old. So the fact that I'm still on that farm, that damn ass farm, I need to get off of it. I love the farm. I do love the farm. I have such a connection to her. That's my sister. No, truly she is. But sisters have to fight sometimes to fall back in love. And this was my fight with her. But I'm not back in love. I need to move away from her. I truly do. Guys, it's actually so serious because I'm going to be real. I'm actually getting a bit worried that once I move back, I say move back to the farm. I've literally been in Emma's apartment for like a week and a half, acting as if I've moved to London. I'm like, oh, guys, I've just moved to London. I don't know what to do with myself. But moving back to the farm, I'm actually a little bit worried because I've now had a taste of what London life is like. And I'm a bit scared that like once I go back to the farm, I'm going to be incredibly depressed because me just being able to walk to the cafe, I've been joking about it, but it's honestly like given me life. Like genuinely it has. This is the life I deserve. Wait, it is like doing nothing, but also like being inspired and working on the podcast and just like feeling hot. Like I feel like my hotness is appreciated here and not even in like a like everyone wants to fuck me kind of way, but just in the sense that like I just feel like people understand me more. Do you know what I mean? I feel as though I walk through the streets and I see people that are like me. I see trans people. I see visibly queer people. And we give each other like the knowing look, you know? On the farm, bitch, on my family run, masculine brother, father looking farm, it's not the same. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you're a queer person and you live in a small village, it's, you know that feeling. You know the feeling of feeling trapped and feeling like you can't get out because moving to London is so unrealistic for me. It's so crazy. There is such a housing crisis. Like it's insane. The amount of money that you have to have consistently coming into your bank account just to move to London, just to move into a room. Like if we're being realistic, for me to move to London, I'd have to share a house with at least minimum 10 people. I'm not even joking. Like it's so insane the amount of money you have to have and the amount of jobs you have to have as well to move to London. I just don't have that right now. And I also just, it's such a balance of like, I'm so lucky to live on the farm and not have to pay rent and live with my family that I do get on with. But also you're giving up quite a lot of like your freedom in a way and like your freedom to express yourself 100% because even if you get on with your family, there's still things that you don't really want to do in front of them. And there's certain outfits that you don't want to wear in front of them. And not that they're like overly revealing, but maybe they're just like your true self that you don't really share with people. And also there's just like, there's something so nice about, we'll get into it later, just being by yourself a little bit. Like when I've come home to this, when I say home, it's literally Emma's flat, but like when I've come back to Emma's flat after a long day of me walking to the cafe and walking back, it's just nice to be by myself and have my little routine. But when you're home and it's, you're living with your parents and your brothers and their girlfriends, as much as you love them all, being in the kitchen with them and constantly sharing the space and, you know, trying to hide certain parts of yourself so that people don't ask questions about you, it's really jarring. And I would love to move to London. So if anyone out there like wants to give me money, I'm kidding, but also I'm not. If there are any those kind of men that just have like tons of money, again, if there are any people that fly planes as a hobby, I've said it before and I'll say it again, give me £10,000. It's a constant message throughout this podcast. If you fly planes as a hobby for fun, or even like helicopters or something, give me £10,000. You have too much money. You have too much, and you're ruining the ozone layer. So as reprimations, I don't know, give me money basically is what I'm saying, so I can move to London. But also there is something in me working towards that, and there is. I was about to like make a joke and be like, but also give me the money. But no, there is something nice in knowing that like I want to build this podcast to the point where, I could maybe one day pay rent doing this podcast, doing social media, because I put so much effort into this podcast. And realistically, the work that I'm doing in this podcast is like 3 people's jobs. I know that sounds so stupid, but I do all this by myself. And people kind of gag about that. Like I have, I'm signed to management and stuff, but I choose to do all this by myself because I'm so picky. But there's like editing, that would be one person's job. Doing the podcast, my job. And then doing socials is another job. I do all of it. And one day it would be amazing to get paid for that. And realistically, the only way that can happen is, if you guys keep listening and you share it with your friends. And I really mean it. Like if there are any friends that you think would like the podcast, share it with them. Because it would just mean so much if I could grow this podcast to the point where I can get off the farm. Everyone's like, oh my God, Kate, you're so Pearl. Mia Goth, Pearl, you're like Pearl coded. And I'm like, well, yes, obviously, I grew up on a farm and I want to get off the farm. It kind of pissed me off when everyone in October a few years ago were like, oh my God, like get me off this farm, dressing up as Pearl. And I was like, no, bitch, my culture is not your costume. Wait, like you can't be saying, get me off this farm when you don't understand what it's like. You don't, guys, you don't understand what it's like to be on a farm and feel suffocated. Anyway, I need to move to London, and I looked on Rightmove and that was a bit depressing because I was like, oh, literally the cheapest flat that I can get in the place that I want to live. I guess it's a studio, but like the cheapest flat is like 1.7k a month. Right. Okay, up next, curry core. I made a curry the other day and it was actually a bit splendid. I love making a curry. When I'm by myself, I love treating myself, but not too much. But this past week, I think I've spent more money than I've spent maybe ever. I'm not even joking. Like consistently I've spent so much money, and it's not even because I'm like living in London and it's, oh my God, it's so expensive, because it is expensive here obviously to like just buy food and like the cost of living, etc. But bitch, it's on my own accord. I've just been spending money willy-nilly. Absolutely insane. Going to the coffee shop every single day, buying a little treat. The little quote, little treat. Oh, I just want a little treat after dinner. Me walking out after I've just finished a whole meal, walking down the high street, grabbing something from the health food store, because there's me being like, oh, I want to be healthy. Let's go to the health food store. £26 later on a little treat, on a little snack in the health food store. You're going to prison. I was in the health food store the other day. Guess how much a pint of ice cream was? Just a little bit of ice cream. £7.50. £7.50. You're going straight to hell. £7.50 for a pint of ice cream. Actually, this is so embarrassing. I was trying to get my little #sweet treat the other night. It was actually yesterday. And I was in one of the health food stores and I walked in and there was a guy behind the counter. And this guy behind the counter, I was looking around and I didn't really know what I wanted. And I had my headphones on, #AddisonRay, #headphones on, and he was dinging this bell. You know those kind of like bells that you like, I don't know, ding? I really had to explain that twice. He was dinging this bell constantly. And I turned around to be like, bitch, what are you doing? And he was looking at me while dinging the bell. It was giving rom-com meet cute. And I was like, wait. And I was like, I don't find him attractive. But then he started speaking. And you know when a guy just starts speaking and he like, he's talking and, he's wanting to strike up a conversation with you. It's a little bit like, oh, I quite like this. I think it's sexy. So I turned around and he said, hey, you all right? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. How are you? And he was like, yeah, I'm good. Do you need my help? And there was something about like, do you need my help rather than do you need help? That was like, oh, you want to help me? Like, that's a little bit special. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm so girl next door. I'm just looking for a sweet treat. And he goes, oh, what do you fancy? And then this is where I absolutely dropped the ball. I was like, I want something sweet, but also I'm kind of feeling something savory. He just looked at me and he was like, right. So that helps no one. And he was like, do you like chocolate? And I was like, well, yeah, but like, I'm not really in the mood for chocolate. And he just ended the conversation that he was like, this bitch is not helpable. You can't help this diva. So it got to the point where he just went back to dinging his bell and he just kind of like looked away. And I was like, well, guess I'm going to walk away now. And then I walked away. I sure as hell did. I walked away and I left the store. And I gave him a wink as I left, which wasn't meant to be like romantic or like flirty. I've just started winking at people. And I left the store and I was like, I shouldn't have done that. I should not have winked at that man. But I wink at quite a lot of people. Someone on the tube the other day wanted to sit next to me. And she sat next to me and she looked at me and smiled and then I winked at her. And it felt quite sweet. I was sitting in a public area the other day. It was so weird. I was sitting just in like a public area. And then the weird thing was someone came and like stood next to me and was like, oh, can I sit down here? And it wasn't like a bench. It was like seating. I was like, well, of course you can. What do you mean? Can you sit? Of course you can sit next to me. And that again was like a little wink. I love winking. I love a little wink. You can't go wrong with a little wink. Anyway, yeah, sorry. I made a curry. Don't know where. I don't know how I tailed off into that. I made a curry and it was really yummy. Vegetable curry. I'm talking butter beans. I'm talking tomato. I'm talking, oh my God, what else was in it? Tofu, broccoli, mushrooms. Just so special. And I had the curry. Oh, I will be honest with you guys. Love having the sauce without like the rice or the pasta. And it's not me being like, oh, I'm hashtag healthy because eating the pasta and the rice is health. For me, I'm just such a little sucker and a whore. I'm a whore for sauces. I am for bolognese, for carbonara, for curry. And for me, it's like, why are you taking up space in my stomach when I'm eating the rice? I just want to have the curry. I just want to eat that. Do you know what I mean? So I just have the curry by itself. And I think that's really special. Up next, second to last point is Prince and Me. So Prince and Me is a rom-com that recently was added to Netflix. I don't know how I've never heard of this rom-com before because it literally is so KC coded, KC being Kit Costello. It has the KC stamp of approval and it's risen to the top 5 streamed films in the KCCU, the Kit Costello Cinematic Universe. Prince and Me is about this like typical girl next door. She kind of got that from me. I taught her the ways. It's about this girl next door who lives in Milwaukee and she goes to university there and she's just so girl next door. She's kind of really clever vibes and she's studying science and she just really wants to be a scientist. And then on the flip side, you have this prince, the Prince of Denmark. It's serious and he's next in line for the throne. But he just wants kind of the girl next door experience, but he's not getting it because he's the prince. So he sees an advert for these girls in Milwaukee that are so wild and they show men their boobs, which is really weird. So he's like, let me go to Denmark. No, he says, let me go to Milwaukee and see some boobs. Right. He stops off at Milwaukee University and he says to himself, now, the first girl I meet, she's going to show me her tits because that's how it works here. He's in a bar and he goes up to this girl, the girl next door, famously, and he says, well, are you going to show me your tits or what? And she says, oh, sprays him in the face with beer, rightfully so. What a creep. Turns out it's, oh my God, guys, enemies to lovers. Like, it's so serious. They have to work together in the science class because he enrolls in the university for a semester. And then they fall in love and then she finds out that he's the prince and then romance ensues. And it's a bit of a rom-com. Would you guys want me to do like film analysis videos? I would love to do that. One day, I really want to just do, there was an episode of the podcast that I was going to do, which was entitled Retelling Divergent from Memory. And then I told my friends about it and they were like, Kit, you can't do that. And to be fair, they were right because I tried to do the episode and it was like 2.5 hours long of me trying to remember it. Half the episode was me just going, well, I'm not sure if that. And then me doing the Shailene Woodley scream where it's like, ah! Right. Also love the Shailene Woodley meme. The interviewer on the red carpet being like, are you hungry? And then she goes, no. And then the interviewer goes, I'm hungry. And then Shailene Woodley goes, we should probably go and eat something then. Love it. But yeah, Prince and Me, top 5 KCCU film at the moment. If you have Netflix, go stream it. It's on the UK Netflix anyway, so get a VPN if you don't have access to UK Netflix. Okay, final update of the week. I am scared of being burgled. Living in this little apartment for a week and a half, the sleep has not been great, guys. I'm going to be real. I have to be honest with you sometimes. The sleep has been a bit abysmal. Waking up every hour on the hour in fears that, oh, I can't even talk about it. Like the fear of someone just like being, makes me sick. Just in the room. You know it's bad when you're like thinking of an escape plan. Do you know what I mean? And thinking about like, let me hide under the bed. That's tough. So every night that I've been here, it has been getting better, but I am still a little bit uncomfortable being by myself in a flat. So I think that kind of maybe proves that I should have a roommate. Because moving to London, I was kind of like, I would want to move here by myself and have like a little studio. But I think having a flatmate would be nice. If you want to move to London together, let me know, because I need a roommate. Preferably if you're like super, super rich. Oh, let me know, queen, because if you're super rich and you can just buy the apartment outright, I will record the podcast and you can sit and listen. That will be the payment. Wouldn't that be fun? I can give you self-interrupted PR every week. I can write you a little note. Yeah, right. That's the catch for the week. Now let's get into the topic of the week, which is the beauty of being alone / how to be alone without being depressed. Right. It's like, when is it my turn? Like, Addison is my sister in secret. Like, that's my sister. I should have been there. Not only should I have been there, I should have put the vinyl and the custom signed vinyl by #Addison. But like, it's times like this, it's times like these, Addison stream. In times like these where I think we will work together someday, and this will be like a little inside joke of ours. Like, I talked about her on the podcast and I didn't get to meet her in Brick Lane, but that's okay because now we're meeting and I'm working with her and I'm in one of her music videos, etc. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Anyway, let's get into this topic. See, now I'm trying to tell you how to not be depressed, but how can I tell you this when I see people meeting Addison Rae when I should be meeting Addison Rae? Do you know what I mean? Okay, so I've split this episode up into 2 separate talking points. I want to talk first about my loneliness, and then I want to talk about my tips on how to not be lonely, or at least to not feel lonely, because I do believe that there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. I think being alone is understanding that your own company is satisfying you enough, and then being lonely is when your own company is not satisfying and you're feeling a little bit down about the fact that you're by yourself. I really do struggle with loneliness sometimes. I think specifically when I do travel, when I've been to Paris, Brighton, and to London by myself, I get this. It's so interesting. I'll be really excited to get to the city that I'm visiting. I'll go into my Airbnb, then I'll go out and I'll do a bit of shopping. Then I'll come back home and it'll be like 2:30, 3 p.m. and I'll be like, okay, so what now? That's where the loneliness for me hits the most. And that's where I can really kind of see it in its saturated form, where I'm like, oh, okay, I do struggle with feeling lonely and also falling into like a depression. And it never lasts longer than like a couple of hours, that depression, but the loneliness will continue. But there is like this like heaviness where I'm like, I'm by myself. No one wants to be with me. Why did I come? Do you know what I mean? Loneliness isn't just when I'm traveling. It is also when I'm living on the farm. That's my first point. On my notebook here, I've just written my loneliness. First thing, living on the farm, in brackets, feeling alone and isolated in every way. In every single way. Living on the farm, and this goes for anyone that lives in like a small village or really just lives in their family house. It's really funny how you can live around so many people but just feel so isolated and alone. Even if you love your family. Like, I do not dislike my family. I love my family. Obviously, we are very, very different. All my brothers are farmers. My dad's a farmer. So going home every day, if I'm in London and I'm, visibly, I'm trans and I'm very queer, coming home to being on this like masculine dominated farm, it just feels lonely because people don't understand it and understand me. They understand like the surface level of me and they understand what it is for me to be Kit, the sibling and the child that they brought up. To actually understand and get to know me, I've like evolved so much like everyone does, but I feel like evolving as a queer person in a small village, in a small town, it's like you almost evolve outside of that village and town. So for me, it was London. You know, I evolved as a model. When I turned 19 and I started modeling, I was instantly told and kind of rewarded for being queer. I was getting paid to like be in campaigns and being editorials, being visibly queer. And then I'd come home to my family farm and I'd feel like I wasn't meant to be that visibly queer on the farm. You know, it wasn't that anyone was telling me that I shouldn't be, but it was more so just a way of being appropriate where I didn't think it was appropriate for me to do that. And I think if you are queer and you grow up in a small town and maybe you go to university and you come back home, there is this kind of distinct feeling of having to like make yourself feel a bit smaller so that you can kind of blend in a bit more. And that's how I feel when I'm home. It's this constant feeling of not being able to be myself. So when I get to come to London and I see my friends, and being able to stay here in Emma's flat for a couple of weeks has just been so, I don't want to say life changing because that's a bit silly, but I think it's something that I will look back on, because having this independence, it's the independence that can either make you feel very lonely or make you feel really empowered. And I think being here, I've had both of those. You know, I've had the feeling of being slightly lonely. And it was funny, when Emma was here, there was a part of me that felt a bit lonely. So it doesn't even necessarily have to do with the people being around you. It can just be an isolating feeling that you get. But I think being empowered has kind of overridden the loneliness while I've been in London. And while I'm at the farm, being empowered is not the first feeling. I feel quite isolated and I feel quite watered down as a person. And it can feel very lonely, especially when I go on walks on the farm. I'm just, you know, walking through the farm by myself with my journal in my handbag, and I walk to the village cafe. I stay there for a couple of hours, and that's really just for me to escape. That's me just getting out and being around people that aren't my family. Growing up on a farm is such a weird, niche and nuanced thing that I just don't think a lot of people really understand. It's that, like, you're just around your family all the time. These people that know you since you were born, they understand you and the intricacies of you, at least that you've showed them. Like, they know versions of you that people don't know. And I think being around that constantly is actually a bit unhealthy. And Emma was saying to me, it's best for me to move out, because being around your family a certain age just actually isn't, it's not great for your evolution, you know? But yeah, I do get lonely on the farm. And I think it's more so like the anticlimacticness of it. You know, when you're living in your family house, or if you're living at home, and especially if you're like self-employed and you work from home, I wake up and I feel so inspired. And you guys know I wake up at like 5:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. and I'll go and have my coffee and I'll watch an episode of Sex and the City, and I feel like the world is mine. You know, I get to do whatever I want. And it gets to around like 12 p.m. I've done all my work and now I'm just sitting on the farm doing nothing. And now I have that at London, but I'm able to walk around. I go for a walk, I go to a cafe, and I feel inspired again, and I get to talk about it on here. You know, it's like a constant cycle of being inspired, and living on a farm, you just don't have that. So I do struggle with loneliness there. The tips that I have, if you live with your family or if you live in a small town, it's just about getting out, whether that's getting out somewhere close to you. For me, it was understanding that I can go for a walk on the farm, because for a while I wasn't walking on the farm. I don't know why, but going for a walk to the cafe has kind of helped me a lot, to be honest. Like, just having those couple of hours by myself with my headphones on and just kind of escaping the reality that I'm in was really nice. Because there's a difference. Actually, I don't think I'm escaping the reality. I don't think that's the right terminology, because I don't think that's necessarily healthy. Because I think if I was escaping reality, it would just be me in my bedroom with my headphones on, thinking and like maladaptive daydreaming about something else. But I was escaping my situation. So I wasn't just in my room or in my office. I was now outside, fresh air, on a walk, because it's best for your mental health as well. Because so much of loneliness and mental health, obviously they intertwine. So going out on a walk and going into a cafe and journaling, I know it sounds kind of frivolous and a bit like I'm just like aesthetic farming, you know, I'm just trying to find the best thing that make me look cool, and I'm drinking black coffee and it's so fun. But like going to a cafe and just like journaling and getting out and having a bit more of a routine rather than just like staying in your bedroom is so important. But also, like, sometimes romanticizing it can be nice. You know, there have been days where I've been like super depressed and I know that I can't go out. That's where it can get a bit scary, is where you're in such a rut that you're like, I feel like I can't leave my house. What do I do now that I can't go on a walk? I feel a little bit too depressed to even do that. That's when I do the leaning in method. It's where I lean into it. I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm not going to leave my house. So what can I do while I'm here that makes me feel A, productive, and B, not like sluggish and gross? I will lean into it. I'll go and get a snack that makes me feel nice. I'll go and watch a TV show that makes me laugh. And then I'll like make plans with people that don't live on a fucking farm, get me off this farm. Get me off this farm. You got to get me off this farm. I'm a star. That's me. I'll make friends with Emma, Hanifa. I'll get off, because as much as you feel trapped, you're not. I think the reason why I don't go into London as much is because it costs so much money, dude. Like TfL, you will pay for your sins. Why does it cost me £20 to go to London and back? Like, that's jail. It's so crazy. And you wonder why people are jumping over the barriers, bitch. It's because it's costing people £20 to go and like not feel trapped in their village, But as much as I can, I will travel to London. But yeah, when I'm on my farm, I like to go for walks and walk my dog, Humphrey, that queen. And also FaceTiming your friends can feel quite nice, and voice noting them. Just kind of escaping reality in those little ways can be very helpful, I think. The next point under my loneliness that I struggle with is general life experience, in brackets being trans, can feel very lonely and isolating. Being trans is a very unique and nuanced experience. And this is like a different type of loneliness. I wouldn't even necessarily say that this like gets me down necessarily, but I just wanted to add it in here just in case there are any like trans people or queer people listening. Because my cure for this is going out of your way to make trans and queer friends. I saw a TikTok the other day, and it was this therapist, and she was harping on the fact that queer people and trans people, she couldn't emphasize enough how important it is to make friends that are queer and trans, because they understand you. And there's something so beautiful about feeling understood, whether that is by a queer person, whether that's just by someone where you finally click with someone and you have this kind of back and forth of understanding each other. And it's all this serotonin that's being let off in your brain, and you just feel so less alone. Being trans can be a very individualistic experience, and an experience that keeps you in your head quite a lot, whether that's having gender dysphoria and feeling like you can't go outside, and that makes you feel more lonely. Because there's been so many situations where I've wanted to go and see people, or I've made plans to go and see people, and then I've looked in the mirror and been like, you look like a man, so I don't want you to go outside today because you'll embarrass yourself. That is a very unique experience to people that are trans. And if you listen to this and you can relate to this, I'm so sorry, because it sucks so much. There's just nothing you can do about it, because it's like the way your mind is working that day is just making you feel insecure, but on a different level, where it's something that you cannot change in your mind and of your physique as well. Yeah, being trans is quite an isolating experience, but being able to make trans friends, and I have the privilege of having so many incredible trans friends and people that I can just resonate with and understand on a different level. It's so important to me. So growing up trans is quite a individual, sometimes lonely experience, but being able to talk about it on this podcast makes me feel less alone, because of the amount of comments and messages that I get from you guys saying that A, you're trans and you understand me and you see me, but also B, that you're not trans but you relate to me in some way. I think that's really sweet as well. And I really appreciate your messages all the time, because you guys make me feel less alone. That's the real gag. You really do. Doing this podcast makes me feel so much less alone. I'm sitting in this apartment by myself. I couldn't feel less alone right now, because I am talking to a camera. Technically I'm talking to two cameras. I don't want to bring up the fact that I have my laptop in front of me just to kind of like look at myself. I have it here as a monitor just in case I look a bit clapped, but sometimes I just look clapped and we can't do anything about that. Like I just said, I literally cancel plans because I feel clapped sometimes. But honestly, referencing back to episode 2 of season 5, get out of your house, aka get out of your head, because you sometimes feel crap about yourself and you feel so insecure, but going out and just seeing people and getting out of your house, literally and figuratively, makes you feel so much better, truly. And it makes you feel less alone, because when you're in a spiraling mode of being like, oh my god, I look ugly, I feel crap, you're just gonna rot in bed and feel worse. Bitch, get out of your house, seriously. I've also written down the 3 S's. I can spiral, self-sabotage, and script. Spiraling is, when I'm by myself and I'm like, everyone hates me. No one's invited me out. No one's texting me back. It does feel a little bit pointed though. I'm going to be real. Sometimes on the days where I feel the most alone is the days where my friends don't text me back. What's that about? My friends will text me back the same minute sometimes. And then the days where I'm literally feeling the most depressed and the most alone is when I'll text my friends and they will text me back at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I've been the most depressed today. But also, it's not this is actually pretty key information. It's not your friend's job to get you out of that kind of situation in your head. It's very important that you learn how to, and that's hopefully what I'm going to teach you in this episode, is that you can't be relying on other people to get you out of your own loneliness and your own spiral, because what if they aren't there? What if it is a day where your friends aren't texting you back and you're sitting in your bedroom and you're like, no one's messaging me, I'm not getting any jobs, I'm not seeing people at work, I feel the most alone I've ever felt. What can I do about that? Not what my friends can do about that, because they're living their own lives. It's not their responsibility to take care of me. It's not their job. So I hope that in this episode, I can teach you that, and we'll get onto that in a second. But self-sabotaging, again, it goes back to me and my friends or people that I'm talking to, and I'm like, and I'm not going to message them because they don't like me or they don't want to hear from me. I'm being needy. I'm being overbearing. I don't want to bother them. It's that self-sabotaging mentality in your head that then doesn't allow you to get what you want out of them, which is just a message, which is just to talk to them, which is just to FaceTime them, to feel seen. To be loved is to feel seen. And sometimes I take that away from myself because I go into like self-sabotaging mode. And then scripting, gonna be real, I don't really know what I mean by that. Scripting, I guess, is... What have I written here? I don't know what I mean by that. Okay, so I've literally written down scripting, but I don't know what I mean by that. I think I mean, like, again, going into the self-sabotaging of it all and convincing myself that people don't like me and making up stories and scenarios in my head. I think that's what I mean. If it's not, I don't think I can help you understanding, because I don't even know. I've written it down, but I can't understand my handwriting. So I can only apologize. And then my last point is just my job can be lonely. Like I said, I'm sitting in this apartment by myself talking to a camera. Some people would find this really lonely. For me, I find this really nice. I find modeling to be lonelier than podcasting, which I think is interesting because my podcast, like I said, is just me. But modeling, I think, is a lot more lonely. And I think I've talked about this story before. It's my first time doing runway when I was 19. And it was like a massive anticlimax. Everyone's touching you all day. They're doing your hair, they're doing your makeup. You're doing quick changes in between the show. And then all of a sudden the show ends and no one cares about you anymore. Everyone leaves and you're standing by yourself in London thinking, what should I do? I have no one to go to. I have no one to talk to. At this point, I don't have any friends in London, so I was just by myself. That kind of loneliness is like really tough. But that's where these upcoming tips that I'm going to teach you would come in and would have been helpful for me when I was 19 doing my first runway show and feeling that kind of anticlimax and feeling a bit down and sad because I felt lonely and upset. Those are the ways that I feel lonely. Now let's get into my tips on how to not feel lonely and to just be alone and thriving. My first tip on how to not be lonely is just accepting the fact that you're by yourself. Accepting it. Allowing it. You're by yourself. You're alone. You're not lonely. Because being alone, repeat after me, being alone is the acceptance of being by yourself. Being lonely is wanting more. Being lonely is wanting company from other people and feeling as though you don't have it, which makes you spiral. And I think being lonely, it's like so many more things that come into play and come into action, and it's so layered where it's like, I'm lonely. And then you start adding all these personal things into your life where it's like, well, I'm lonely because of this. People don't like me because of this. I don't have any friends. I don't have a romantic partner. You start questioning everything in your life, and you can't do that. There's no point in doing that because baseline, you're just by yourself in an apartment. There's no need for you to spiral like this because there'll be so many different times in your life where you are by yourself in an apartment or by yourself on holiday, and that's okay. And facing that fact, I think, is very important, and it's very key because it's the foundation of acceptance. Right. The foundation of it. I like that. What I found really useful and what I turn to a lot of the time when I'm kind of in a wobble state where I'm not 100% feeling lonely and sad, but I'm I'm like, I could get there. You know, if you leave me for half an hour longer by myself, I will be crying on the floor. That kind of vibe. So before I get there, I like to kind of distract myself a little bit just to kind of lift my spirits up. And by that, I mean listening to a podcast. I would say preferably self-interrupted with Kit Costello. I heard that queen is very interesting and insightful and also a little bit funny. On top of it, you know, there's these layers. There's an icon, there's this nuance icon, girl next door vibe about her, and she just understands it to a level that a lot of people don't. Right. So I would listen to podcasts. Also podcasts that I love, Park Your Butt by someone called Dustin, who I love. The Rest is Entertainment, which is a behind the scenes look at the entertainment industry. Dish, which is a food podcast with Angela Hartnett and Nick Grimshaw and a celebrity guest each week. Like, it's just a little bit special. Love a video episode. I just think podcasts are really important for companionship. If you live by yourself and you don't listen to podcasts, babe, tap in. Specifically, again, with this diva called Kit Costello, I heard that she's just so interesting and insightful and just kind of Gandhi for the new generation. Right. Movies and TV shows as well, guys. It's actually very serious. And I'm talking a TV show where it's like, you don't have to be tapped in. Like, I'm talking Pretty Little Liars. I'm talking Vampire Diaries. I'm talking Sex and the City. The kind of stuff that you can have on in the background and just not really pay that much attention to it, but it's just background noise. It's nice to have something going on in the background while you're cleaning and cooking, you know? Also music, of course. Stream Addison's album, but also that diva did not invite me to her signing, which feels personal. No, it does. Love Addison, love Conan Gray, love Olivia Dean. So there are these divas, right? Just any kind of media, I think is just very important. And playing your favorite stuff. Like if there's like a favorite TV show or movie that you love, play it. Because those memories of you watching that will flood back. And subconsciously, you'll feel less alone because, babe, you'll be with your memories. Wait. I think my next point is really important, and it's understanding why you don't like being alone. What actually is it? Is it the feeling of being rejected and feeling like you have no one? Sorry, I don't mean to read you guys, but that's how I feel sometimes. Sometimes I'll be by myself and I'm like, so this is why I don't have a boyfriend. I'm lonely. I've never had anything in my life. You know, that's where my mind goes, and it's not incredibly healthy. During times where I'm like very actually depressed, when I'm lonely, I will question a lot of facets of my life. And I'll think, you know, why don't I have a boyfriend? Should I have more friends? Should I have a job where I work 9 to 5? You know, am I missing out on that experience? That's something I think about a lot of the time because I am self-employed, I model, I do this podcast. But sometimes I think, would I feel less lonely if I work a 9 to 5 job? And then I think about the privilege of me not having to work a 9 to 5 job and thinking, if I worked a 9 to 5 job, I think I'd probably be more depressed, if I'm going to be real. And I need to honor the privilege of me being able to sit at home and record an episode of the podcast. But yeah, understanding the real reason as to why you feel lonely and what really triggers you about being lonely. Is it just the silence that you don't like? Then put on music. Is it feeling like you're lonely? Then call a friend, FaceTime a friend. Is it just feeling like you have so many thoughts in your head and you feel a bit uncomfortable in the silence and being by yourself? Start journaling. I know it sounds really mundane and super easy, but these are just stepping stones to getting to a place where you feel more comfortable. I'm just giving you guys the pillars. You guys don't have to take them all, but you can take enough that you feel like your foundation is now stable. That you come away from this episode and now you feel like, oh, okay, Kit gave me these points that help me when I feel less alone. And even just listening to this episode, I hope you feel less alone, literally and figuratively. You know, if you literally are by yourself, I hope that you feel less alone. But also, if you do suffer with a bit of depression when you're by yourself, I hope you know that you're not alone in that. There are so many people that feel that way. And especially for me, like, I'm an introvert. I don't like being around that many people, but it gets to a point where I do feel very lonely, and then I start to question a lot of aspects of my life and wonder why I'm by myself. That's what I do. I kind of question, like, well, how did I end up here? How am I by myself? And it's like, bitch, you're literally in Emma's apartment. This isn't your flat. Like, you can have people here if you wanted. Do you know what I mean? And my last point on how to not feel lonely is to reach out to people and make plans in the future. So important. Something that really helps me when I'm feeling lonely is having something to look forward to. My God, having that calendar And it could be anything. I'm talking like a meeting, I'm talking work things, I'm talking seeing my friends, going to the cinema, anything like that. Just knowing in a couple of days, this loneliness will end because I'll be with someone is so important. And honestly, it makes me feel really inspired because then I'm thinking, oh, okay, if I'm seeing a friend in a couple of days, what am I going to have to catch them up on? What have I been doing in the past couple of days? That will then get me to get my ass up and go to the village, go for a walk, do things that make me feel like I'm actually doing something. Sometimes, though, I will be honest, if I'm on the farm and I'm just going for a walk, it can get a bit monotonous. You know, going for the same walk, the same cycle every single day. So switch up your plans a bit. If you're going on a walk, go in a different direction. This sounds so stupid, but sometimes the simple things are actually what make the greatest change, because sometimes I will go on the same route of a walk and it just doesn't hit. You know, when you have a meal and you're like, this is my favorite meal. And to reward myself, I'm going to have this favorite meal that maybe costs a bit more money and I'm going to make it. And then it doesn't hit because you haven't waited long enough to have that meal. Maybe you had it the day before or something, or like a couple nights before. If you do the same thing over and over again, like if I do that walk over and over again, it feels like I'm just doing it just for the sake of doing it. It's not like I'm doing it and I'm feeling inspired. I'm not feeling inspired by that walk. But what inspires me is like going on a different route and seeing new things. And I think it's just like subconsciously what your brain is attuned to. You know, if you're subconsciously kind of like a train on like these rails going on a walk that hits the same points every time, going off of those train tracks and kind of going off road a bit helps your mind feel a bit inspired, and you're thinking, okay, well, what can I do now? Where can I go? Am I getting a bit lost? I love getting lost. I love getting lost on a walk. Worst case scenario, look at Google Maps. Love getting lost on a walk. You're never really that lost, you know? Anyway, those are my points on how to feel less lonely. But I just want you to know that you're never really alone. I'm always here. Even if you just stick on an episode of Self-Interrupted, I hope that makes you feel less alone. And there's always companionship here at Self-Interrupted for you. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you've left it feeling a little bit lighter and feeling less alone. We've come to the end of this episode of Self-Interrupted with Kit Costello, but before I leave, I have the vinyl of the week and the recommendation of the week. The vinyl of the week is Hannah Montana the movie on vinyl. Now, I don't want to flex, guys, but I got the first pressing of Hannah Montana the movie on vinyl. Yeah, it's very special. I got it last year, and let's just say that's my prized possession. That soundtrack has bangers. I'm talking Crazier, Taylor Swift. I'm talking You Always Find Your Way Back Home. I'm talking Crazier, I already said that. I'm talking Dream, I'm talking The Climb, I'm talking Hold Down, Throw Down, I'm talking Butterfly Fly. Wait. There are actually too many bangers for me to even list. Like, that's a bit insane. So Hannah Montana, the vinyl, go buy it or stream the soundtrack. Recommendation of the week, sesame oil, this queen. Like, sesame oil adds so much to a flavor. No, adds so much to a dish. Can you guys tell I'm a bit tired? Wait. I love sesame oil. I love frying broccoli and mushrooms and tofu in my sesame oil. And then just having that with a bit of avocado, right? And then some cheese coleslaw, classic KC movements. But that's the vinyl of the week and the recommendation of the week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Self-Interrupted. If you have, please make sure to rate the episode, please. You can watch full episodes of the podcast over on the YouTube channel Self-Interrupted with Kit Costello. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and on TikTok at Self-Interrupted Pod. You can follow me personally on Instagram and on TikTok at kit.costello. You can follow my spam account at Kit Costello. But other than that, I'm sending you so much love. As always, Kit.